MBA Research and Curriculum Center is proud to present this video series on ethical principles, brought to you by the Daniels Fund Ethics Initiative. You can find timestamps, links, and more in the video description box below. Subscribe to our channel to stay up to date with all of our content. This video will cover the 7th ethical principle of the rule of law. First, let's explore our ethics dictionary. The rule of law is defined as complying with the letter and spirit of laws and regulations. Law comes from the Old English root word lagu, which means right or legal privilege. Let's look at some words that are alike and different. First are synonyms, or words that are very close in meaning. Some synonyms of law are code, requirement, precedent, and covenant. Next are antonyms, or words that are opposite in meaning. Some antonyms of law are transgression, illicit, unwarranted, and wrongful. American General and President Dwight D. Eisenhower said, "The clearest way to show what the rule of law means to us in everyday life is to recall what has happened when there is no rule of law." Building blocks are the traits that a person needs to have in order to act ethically. Each ethical principle has its own set of traits. What building blocks are associated with this principle? The rule of law's first building block is staying informed. When you stay informed, you will always be aware of what's happening in your community, country, and the world, and how this news will affect you. You might hear someone say, "Keep me posted," meaning they want to be informed of any developments on an issue. Staying informed is connected to following the letter of the law. In other words, the written laws in place and the punishments that come from breaking them. You may not always agree with the laws that are in place, but you should still be informed about the consequences of breaking them. If you're uninformed, you might be surprised by the punishments you receive. Let's look at an example. Your parents might have a curfew for you, but you're also probably aware of the legal curfews that limit when people under the age of 18 can be out by themselves, typically between 11 p.m. or midnight and dawn. If you aren't keeping informed, however, you might miss important updates to curfew laws. A Louisiana city recently passed a law that also holds parents accountable when their children break curfew. If you were caught breaking curfew here, saying you didn't know about the law wouldn't be enough to keep your parents from being charged. The rule of law's second building block is civility, the courtesy and politeness that we show to one another through words and actions. People who act with civility understand why rules or laws are put in place and can use that understanding to make appropriate decisions and treat others with basic decency. You might hear someone say, "You showed good form," meaning you showed good judgment and manners when dealing with a situation. Civility is connected to following the spirit of the law. In other words, the aim or purpose of written laws. Some actions might technically be legal, but doing them would show that you have a lack of respect for why those laws were written in the first place. Let's look at an example. Many states have laws that ban texting while driving, and some states take it further by banning drivers from holding their phone to take calls as well. If you drive, you're probably aware of what laws are in place for your state. These laws were put in place to prevent distracted driving. If you're more focused on your phone than the road, you could cause a serious accident. You can follow the spirit of these laws by also avoiding other forms of distracted driving, like eating or focusing on outside distractions. How do the building blocks of the rule of law work together? Can you have one without the other? Most people are aware of the consequences of acting without civility, but might choose to ignore them to prove a point or to serve their own interests. However, if you also happen to be uninformed, you might be surprised when you receive legal consequences for your misbehavior. Let's look at an example. Annual Black Friday sales can draw large crowds of discount-hungry shoppers. However, some shoppers are unable to remain civil when trying to get the best deals, and become angry and argumentative when they don't get the item that they want. They might not be breaking the letter of the law with their uncivil conduct, but they are breaking the spirit of the law, that we should treat each other with basic courtesy in public spaces. Some of this uncivil behavior crosses the line from uncivil to illegal, breaking the letter of the law. Some shoppers might be rude to store employees, but this behavior can escalate into hurting an employee. Others might push to get into the store or climb over displays, which could cause damage to store property. Or two shoppers could get into a fight with each other. All of these behaviors could result in being charged with a crime. When you stay informed and civil, you'll become a person who is able to follow both the letter and spirit of the law. You'll understand what laws are in effect, understand why those laws were made, and know exactly what would happen if you were to break those laws. In other words, you'll be following the rule of law. We can learn more about the consequences of behaving without ethical principles from events in the past and present. The following story is just one example.
This is ABC's Aaron Katersky. 50 people have been charged in what federal prosecutors in Boston have called the largest college admissions cheating scandal ever prosecuted in the United States. Among those arrested are nearly 36 parents who collectively paid a college counselor based in California $25 million. And in turn, the college counselor has now pleaded guilty to bribing SAT administrators and college coaches at Wake Forest and USC and Yale and other schools to fake athletic credentials.
Let's examine the timeline of events. Between 2013 and 2018, Rick Singer, a professional college admissions consultant, begins accepting bribes from wealthy parents who want to get their children into top schools. In April 2018, a defendant in an unrelated FBI case gave a tip to federal investigators that a Yale soccer coach was receiving payments for pretending that certain applicants were prospective soccer team members. Between May 2018 and March 2019, Singer is wiretapped by the FBI and eventually agrees to cooperate with their investigation, Operation Varsity Blues. Part of his role is getting parents to self-incriminate over phone conversations. In addition to the college sports scheme, Singer also helped parents by getting their children an unfair advantage on ACT and SAT exams. This included bribing proctors into assisting test takers or correcting their responses, and assigning fake learning disabilities to test takers so that they would get extra time and accommodations. In March 2019, the FBI formally charges 51 people with a variety of charges, including mail fraud, racketeering, bribery, and money laundering. In total, over $25 million in bribes were paid out through Singer's businesses and nonprofit organization. Singer himself pled guilty and was given a jail sentence of 3.5 years. Though these parents, coaches, and other college admissions staff benefited in the short term, they lacked the building block traits necessary for following the rule of law and remained both uninformed and uncivil. Eventually, they were brought to justice and made to serve jail time and pay fines. Why does this event illustrate the importance of the rule of law? Let's take a second look. An informed person would be aware of the penalties that come with participating in a large-scale bribery and fraud scheme, and avoid punishments by turning down these bribes. A civil person wouldn't use their wealth or status to place less deserving college applicants ahead of other, more deserving applicants. Why do ethical principles matter in your life? Let's take a look at an example. We've looked at a lot of scenarios where people acted with or without ethical principles. Now, you'll get to decide what to do in an ethical dilemma. Pay attention to the following scenario and think about how you would respond. You got your license last year and saved up enough money from your part-time job to purchase a used car. You've enjoyed driving it so far and love having the freedom to go where you want, when you want. It's the weekend, and you're on your way to meet your friends at the movie theater. However, it's a busy day, and the parking lot is packed. You start to worry that you'll miss your movie and try hard to find a parking spot. You're so busy looking for a spot that you don't notice a car that is halfway backed out of a spot and hit their rear bumper. It doesn't seem to have caused too much damage to either car, and if you stop now, you'll definitely be late. In the real world, there are many ways you could respond to this problem. However, in this hypothetical scenario, you have 4 choices available to you. 1. You explain to the other driver that you are running late and try to give them your insurance info quickly so you can join your friends. 2. You forget about your trip to the movie theater and leave the scene of the accident before you can get into trouble. 3. You try to blame the other driver for not looking while they were backing out of the parking space. Or 4. You stay at the scene, accept fault for the accident, and exchange insurance information with the other driver. Which choice would you make? Take some time to think about your answer. What choice did you decide to make? Let's explore some of the benefits and drawbacks of each choice. If you picked choice 1, you explained your situation to the other driver and tried to exchange insurance information as quickly as possible. This choice isn't the most ethical, but it's not the worst choice you could have made. Civility is a two-way street. You have to treat the other driver with civility if you want them to do the same for you, especially since you are the one responsible for the accident. With this choice, you'd benefit from getting to join your friends and see the movie if the other driver is willing to exchange information quickly, and they would be able to make a claim on your insurance to cover the damage to their car. You are informed enough to know the consequences of trying to leave the scene or deny fault for the accident. However, this choice might upset the other driver. They might think you're being rude or uncivil by trying to leave so quickly. If that happens, they might call the police to sort out the situation. You'd definitely be late and might also be given additional fines or be summoned to appear in traffic court. If you pick choice 2, you left the scene of the accident without getting out of your car. This is the most unethical choice. You're committing a hit and run, which is a serious crime. With this choice, you'd benefit from not having to bother with the details of your accident at the scene where it happened. This is uncivil behavior and breaks the spirit of the law. You'd want someone to stop if your situations were reversed, right? By leaving the scene of the accident, you also broke the letter of the law. The other driver and witnesses would be able to give a police report with a description of your vehicle and license plate number. Your car would still be damaged, so anyone could tell that you hit something. The police would find you and charge you with the hit and run. You might also be uninformed about the serious consequences of committing a hit and run, such as losing your license. If you pick choice 3, you tried to blame the other driver for causing the accident. This is an unethical choice. You aren't demonstrating civility, and you aren't informed enough to know who was at fault in the accident. With this choice, you'd benefit from staying at the scene to avoid the harsh punishments for committing a hit and run. However, you were clearly distracted while driving. Although laws vary from state to state, many states' right-of-way laws would give a car halfway out of a parking space right-of-way. When the police show up to assign fault, they will probably tell you that you had plenty of time to notice that a car was in front of you. You weren't informed enough to understand the letter of the law. Additionally, you are also demonstrating a lack of civility towards the other driver. You are entitled to have your own opinion, but you shouldn't need to blame the other driver to get your point across. You might have tried to follow the rule of law by staying at the scene, but you broke the spirit of the law when you were unable to treat the other driver with civility. If you picked choice 4, you stayed at the scene, accepted fault for causing the accident, and exchanged insurance information with the other person. This is the ethical choice. You use the building blocks of civility and staying informed to make the right decision. With this choice, you'd benefit from doing the right thing. You behaved with civility and followed both the letter and the spirit of the law by recognizing that you were at fault and exchanging insurance. However, you'd be late for your movie and you'd still have to deal with your insurance. Your monthly premium would go up, which would make your parents mad if you're on a family insurance policy. Your car might also need repairs, even if it seems okay to drive. Which choice did you make? Hopefully, seeing the benefits and drawbacks associated with your choice made it easier for you to visualize how ethical principles can impact your future. When you take time to consider any potential benefits and drawbacks, you will be better prepared to make ethical decisions in real life. Wondering how you can become a more ethical person? Here are some things to consider going forward. How can you act in accordance with the rule of law in your own life? Take a look at these examples. At school, people who follow the rule of law treat authority figures like teachers and school staff with a basic level of civility, even if they disagree with their choices. At home, people who follow the rule of law stay informed on current events and stay aware of changes to laws within their communities. While working or volunteering, people who follow the rule of law comply with all safety procedures and follow the chain of command. It's important to take time for self-reflection. First, ask yourself, have you ever gotten a speeding ticket or other traffic citation? What consequences did you receive? What would happen if you continued to get these tickets? Second, consider your environment. How can you inspire those around you to understand and follow the letter and the spirit of the law? Thank you for watching. We hope that you enjoyed this deep dive into ethical principles. This video was presented by MBA Research and Curriculum Center on behalf of the Daniels Fund Ethics Initiative. To learn more, please visit mbaresearch.org or click the link in the video description box below.